which will be shown after Thursday. What's that? Yeah, this evening at 10 o'clock after the wonderful boat rise, the river boat cruise. We'll come back here and you don't want to miss this. It's really a wonderful movie. And so Sheldon, I'm going to pick Sheldon up without further talk on my part. Sheldon Wolfchild.
My name is Sheldon Wolfchild. My Dakota name is Old Man Star. I'm a Vietnam veteran. Went to Nam in 1970. I also am from the Lower Sioux Reservation in Morton, Minnesota. My family, I come from the family of Chief Black Dog, Shunkasapa, who's also known as Big Eagle. And our village was right up past Fort Snelling here, about 3 miles up the river there. Our village was called Magayu Tishi, and that means in our language roughly people who do not eat geese. And the reason we did not eat geese is because in that area where each spring the geese would come in and have their young ones grown there. So in respect, we respected their territory and their land area, so we would not eat them. That's the connection in our belief system. So, being born and raised in Lower Sioux, that is where the War of 1862 originated. So in growing up in my process, we lived with that whole historical trauma that began back with our First Nations and peoples, and particularly our Dakota people. So we, as Minnewacan Dakotas, our original villages and sacred sites are right here in St. Paul and Minneapolis. And so periodically over the years, from long ago, after the removal of the War of 1862, our people would always come back here and have ceremony at our sacred sites. You know, as a veteran, we know about survival. Survival in the face of war. That's the same process that our Dakota people went through in the War of 1862. Our men, women, and children, how they had to survive through that process after the removal of the 1862 war, what Abraham Lincoln did, and others, senators, the governor of Minnesota, all of the connections to Washington. What you just witnessed in the beginning of this process through our ceremony was the original way we did it when we signed treaties with the government. When we signed that treaty, we had our sacred pipe and that connection directly with the Creator. So everything was done in a thorough, honest, dignified way in our belief system. So we handled it just like we did as we began this program, respecting all creation, all two-legged, we're all relatives. Madafiasi means we are all related, no matter what color we are. And we're related to all life, everything that has movement or that grows on Mother Earth. We are connected that way as relatives in our belief system from the Creator. So that's the way we have always handled that from the beginning of time through the treaty system. And so how do we survive? How do we deal as Dakota people when atrocity hits us prior to and during and after the War of 1862? I'm completing my second documentary, The Indian System, and it deals with the causes of the 1862 war that has never been published and talked about thoroughly by historians and the whole history of the state of Minnesota. We as Dakota people and First Nations people are telling our story now in this contemporary time and day and age. via media. We will tell our story of what really happened, how this war was really caused by the governor, the senators, representatives in the state of Minnesota, Sidney Ramsey, all of them, all the way up through the Abraham Lincoln administration era time. That's what we will do. We'll finish this film at the end of September. I will portray my grandfather, Medicine Bottle, who was hung at Fort Snelling, right here down the river, along with Chief Little Six. 38 plus 2 productions. I named my production company after the 38 that were hung in Mankato, the largest mass execution in American history in the state of Minnesota. Plus 2, my grandfather and Medicine Bottle, 3 years later. 38 plus 2 productions. This is their story, and this is the story of all First Nations people from the East Coast to the West Coast and through Canada and from the South, our relatives. We are telling our historical truth in this way, through this media process. And so, I'm also, tonight you will watch my other film, The Doctrine of Discovery. And through that system, we go back 500 years to the papal bulls, the Roman Catholic Church, the Pope, that gave the right to Christopher Columbus through the King and Queen of Spain and Portugal to come to this new land. And if there are people living on this land, we have to recognize them as terra nullius. If they are not baptized, then they are considered terra nullius, null and void. They do not exist. They are barbarians. They are considered animals. So that gives us the right through the church, the Catholic Church, in that process to discover new lands. And for the Europeans, Spain, Portugal, England, France, all of them did this process. The film clearly explains that whole process. So if we're null and void, we do not exist, then that's called dehumanization. They had to dehumanize us first. Then that gave them the right to proceed through their moral process of the belief systems of the European churches, to give them the right, and eventually through the Johnson-McIntosh decision of the Supreme Court of 1823, through that decision then, they said that Indians do not have a right to own their land. They only have a right of occupancy to their land. Only the United States government owns this land, not the Native Americans. And so from 1823 on to this very day, that is the cornerstone of federal Indian law to this very day that we have to deal with. And it's called plenary power. What is plenary power? It means that Congress at any time can write up legislation again, just like they did before the War of 1862 through our treaties. And they can say, well, we have plenary power over the Native American people. Let's write up legislation now. We can take away all their the rest of their treaty land that we have, and we can remove them. We can make them American citizens, and then we'll take away their land, their treaty rights, anything they have. All we got to do is pass this legislation. And then we're done. That's what we live under today. Plenary power. And so our governance, the processes that we have today on all our First Nations land bases, we have to protect that. We have to educate the non-Indian people out there about historical truth. We have to educate them because that's been hidden all these years, even to this very day, which is why we do documentaries and films, to explain our side of historical truth. To explain to the educational system out here that you have to begin to teach historical truth to our children. Because if they are denied historical truth, then what's going to happen? We, today, to this very time, look at what's happened in Washington, D.C. The very man that's in that Oval Office, the first thing he did, he put on hung on a The picture on his wall was Andrew Jackson, that removed all our people from the east across the Mississippi River to the west. Before our War of 1862, on July 5th, 1862, Congress passed legislation, and it said that any treaty tribe that goes to war against the United States, by proclamation, President Lincoln can remove them out of their territory and do away with all their treaties. This is on July 5th, 1862. So what in Article 6 in our treaties that the quota people signed, it says the United States government will protect all Indian tribes of injustices and other things that may go wrong that deal with Native American treaties within a tribal government. We will protect their rights and protect them. After July 5th, what did the state of Minnesota, Governor Ramsey, Sibley, and Sibley and all the rest of them do? Did they go to the Lower Sioux and Upper Sioux and all of our First Nations people up the river and tell them that we just passed legislation, we know you're starving, we know you did not give you money, the money for the millions of acres we got from you? The treaty says we owe you the money for all your land. We're not giving it to you, but we bought the land. So this is the land we're going to pay you, like we have been. They've been paid on June of every year that prior to 1862 they would be paid. June comes, they weren't paid, they were starving, and finally in August, the money comes in on August 11th. Did they tell the Lower Sioux and Upper Sioux and the rest of our people, the money is here and we're bringing the food, so we know you're on the verge of war, and we know you're starving? We're going to do the right thing through our Article 6 of our treaty, and we're warning you, don't go to war, please. We're bringing the money. Because on July 6th, or July 5th, 6 weeks ago, Congress passed legislation. If you go to war, then we're going to take your land and remove you out of the state. Not one representative of governance of this state or the United States government went to our chiefs and headmen and told them that. Why? It's very obvious. Obvious. Maybe the young people will get tired and they'll go to war. Maybe they'll start a war. Maybe they'll stop that farmer that's selling liquor and go down there and give them hell, and maybe something will happen. And that's exactly what happened. They were tired of that farmer selling liquor out of his house next door, and they killed him and his wife and some other people that began the war. Is that told in the history books? To stop liquor sale to their people? No, it isn't. It's in my film. So thus then begins the war. So my point is, as a veteran, a Vietnam veteran, going over there and experiencing that process, I'm a 11 Bravo, a grunt. What do they do to Native Americans right away? Oh, you can smell them 10 miles away here, 50 miles away. You're going to be out on the point, and you're going to be in the front lines. My uncle, in the Second World War, he wanted to join the service in the Second World War when he was 17. He went in, they said, you don't have enough weight on you. You can't join. He goes back home for 3 months, he puts on 20 more pounds, he goes back and in, they allow him to be in the war. He goes through the process of infantry training, he gets over to Iwo Jima, gets off the boat and from the ocean and runs to the shore, and what happens? A sniper gets him and hits him in the head and kills him. So how do we as First Nations and people deal with this historical truth? How do we, when we talk about our Vietnam vets coming back and dealing with the trauma we have to deal with? Our people have been dealing with this for 500 years. And as a Vietnam vet, it's another dealing with trauma again. It took me many years after I returned from Vietnam. to get through this hell. So, what are we here for today? Well, we're grateful as human beings, as relatives. You know, I was drafted. I didn't join the Vietnam War. 4 years of education in the art industry. I worked as a commercial artist at Old Donaldson's downtown after I got graduated from college. 3 years later, I went to Sam Bitsky. So that's the process of what we have to do as veterans. And we have to deal with what happened to us in war and get them through that process. It takes us a long time. Thank goodness we have ceremony in our belief system that helped me get through that. So I invite you to come tonight. Please come back with us for 500 years and understand the process of the historical truth. You know, I showed this film in the past year and a half, 2 years, of a lot of faith groups in Minnesota. The Lutherans, the Methodists, Episcopalians, all the faith groups. And what's happened across this country now is all of the major Protestant churches across this country in the past year and a half, 2 years, have unanimously voted in their yearly conferences to have the doctrine of discovery and the papal bulls of 1492 rescinded. And we've also, our goal in this film was get to the Vatican and the Pope to ask him to rescind the papal bulls of 1492. And we got to the Pope a year and a half, 2 years ago now. We got to the Pope. Stephen Newcomb, the principal in my film, met the Pope, gave him his book to read. The Pope said he would read it. 10 other elders from different First Nations were with Stephen, and the Pope said, "Please go with Cardinal Tomasi. He's the head of the Vatican legal entity in Rome." And so they went with Cardinal Tomasi off the grounds there to another building. And they met with Cardinal Tomasi for 2 hours. And they started out that session off with our prayer, with the First Nations prayer with Cardinal Tomasi. And they told him that we wish that their wish there and what they're working for is to have the Pope rescind the papal bull of 1493. And at the end of the meeting, Cardinal Tomasi said, we shouldn't rescind this. This needs to be abolished. This needs to be abolished. So he said, let's continue to talk and get together and meet on this process, and we'll see how we can work this process out. And so that was the start of it. May 4th, 2016, I believe it was. So, you know, we have a lot to look forward to in the future, especially what's going on today, and we have to all stick together. You know, as brothers and sisters, and I want to honor our women, the backbone of our people, life givers, and those that are in the service. I want to say honor all of you, especially. Can never forget our women. So I would like to request that if you can please come this evening and watch the film. It'll be available right in here. And usually we have question and answer, but I don't know if we'll have time to sleep so late. But anyway, that's I wanted to say. But I also want to mention Mitch walking out. He also took a group of young Native First Nations people from Minnesota here to the Vatican too, just recently. And made a tremendous impact with our young people. Very bright, clear-minded young First Nations peoples, and talk with people at the Vatican. And I want to thank them young men and women that went with Mitch to do what they did. Continue that. And I'd just like to end with, when I showed this to an Lutheran church group, and I forget, I've been to many churches the past couple of years, but this was a Lutheran church group, and in their announcement they said, we cannot advance justice today by forgetting injustice yesterday. So let's stay strong today in ourselves. There's a lot to be grateful for. We remember our brothers and sisters that gave their lives for this country. But we also have to remember what happened in the process of 500 years as well with First Nations peoples. Let us understand that to heal, we need to heal together. We need that desperately today. We need to heal because our Mother Earth needs to heal. If we're going to save this earth for the next 7 generations, like our Dakota people, Sioux Nation people believe, all of our relatives, other tribal people believe, for 7 generations, then we have to do that for our children and grandchildren, future generations. That is our responsibility. So let's stay together in a good, humble way. Let's come from the heart as common human beings. As my grandfather Medicine Bottle said before he was hung at Fort Snelling, he said, I'm just a common human being. And he said, someday, when the people come from their heart and look at each other as common human beings, then this will be a good place. Please, let's stay together from the heart as common human beings. That's our strength, that's our power, and the belief system that we all have, no matter which belief system you are. That's the power of life. That's the power of the Creator that we have in our heart. So thank you very much, and welcome all my veteran buddies, males and females, back home. Thank you for your service, and let's stay strong together. Thank you.